Mic check. Aloha. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It is definitely last minute that we put all this together, and we really appreciate you guys coming out and opening minds and opening your hearts to all our members of the community. We have a very wonderful thing, I think, happening here. And so this is the Honoka'a People's Theater. This is my home. This is the home of many people. And but there are, we just asked, there was a couple things that we wanted to ask everyone: no signs, no shouting, no yelling, any of those things. But actually, more than that, just be listening and open to all the things these people have to say. This is not one side versus the other. This is not TMT. This is not a discussion that's about any one particular topic. This is just us coming and sharing. So, and I think we're all here to listen. A couple things. Only one speaker at a time, and please remain respectful. Please, on your, you received some index cards on your way in. On those, please write your questions if you have any for the Q&A afterwards, and we'll compile them down here. There will be, please indicate who your question is to, if it's to everyone up there, or if it's just to one person or another. On the card, and I'll try and make sure all that stays sorted. And if anyone's parked in the bank parking lot, maybe before they close the gate, try and move. Mauna Kea is important to us all. I think we can all agree upon that, and we're just going to start from there. It's a wonderful thing what we're sharing here. So. I'll pass it over to Nalani here.
Aloha kako, welcome everyone. We are again so excited. I want to take a moment and just ask all of you to just take one deep breath so we can just center. If you don't mind doing that right now. Feels a lot better. Thank you. We would also like to ask you to silence your cell phones or on to vibrate. Kane restroom for men is on this side. Wahine is on that side for all of those that haven't been here yet. As Peitan said, you know, we have this saying when we were little. Our moms used to tell us, hey, you know, nothing nice was saying, no say nothing at all. And then usually the ear pulling followed. But tonight I'm going to ask you guys to take it a little further. And actually, if you have something great to say, please refrain from all speaking until we are addressing the questions at the end. So mahalo. And now at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Omar, who will introduce our speakers. Mahalo.
Aloha nui kako. Aloha nui kako. That is a really awesome song. Thank you guys so much for sharing your leo with us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being present. Actually, my truck has to move out of that parking lot. So we do want to go ahead and get started pretty quickly. I do want to go ahead and introduce these wonderful individuals who are here with us this evening. And in doing so, I want to first extend a gracious aloha to Canada, France, Hawaii. Please, Paikulima. And Hana for allowing this opportunity to occur. Thank you so much. Also like to say aloha to Honoka'a People's Theater. Yeah, please, to Dr. Kini and to Feitan and Ohana here. Yeah, give them a big round of applause. We can do better than that. We have to do better than that. They're amazing. They make things happen for us. They have been a jewel on this coast for many, many years, and so thank you. Here's my doctor. He birthed me. That was so crazy. Yeah. And then I'd like to say aloha to our ohana, to our Pule warriors, to our Ohana who have been praying for our Aina for many, 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 many years. Not one place specifically, but many, many places on our moku. And so please, Hawane, and to all of our Ohana who are here, Kalenohea, Keano Inwe, Ruth, Kualalai, Punahele, many people that I will forget because I don't know who's here exactly, Brenda, but can we please, everybody, aloha, because we all know, right, we have one collective consciousness. We all know that our honua, our aina, needs all of our efforts to be able to continue to thrive and to live because there's so many things happening. Isn't that the truth? Yeah, isn't that the truth? All right. And so with that said, I would like to go ahead, before we go ahead and get started in introduction, I would like to go ahead and have all of us rise and hold the hand of the person that is standing next to you. And we are going to go ahead, make sure that the chairway over here is closed up and that we can pa'alima with each other. So we're going to make one continuous, one nice long lay. There you go. Thank you so much. Mahalo nui. Thank you. Thank you. And together we're going to go ahead and offer up to you a song or a prayer. And it is given to us by an elder, our elder, very, very, very dear friend of ours who many of you know. His name was Harry Halealoha Makua. And he is from the Aina of Puna and Ka'u. A beautiful, beautiful man. He would always talk to us about being from the stars and referring to us as beings of the stars. And so we offer this evening this prayer, this song for all of us. Listen to the words, and even if you don't necessarily understand all of them, listen to the words, but especially listen to the melody. Because like that of the great Kohola who traveled the oceans, we all potentially have the same song. Potentially we all sing in different harmonies and frequencies, but the songs are the same. I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes. E aloha e kai ke makame kaha e aloha e ola e kai ke na ume kahoa no e aloha So this evening again, we'd like to go ahead and introduce to you folks. So our Ohana will be sharing with us this evening. The director of Canada France Hawaii, Doug Simmons. Born and raised in Waimea, Hawaii, from the case Ohana Rios, Ohana Hawane Rios. From the Aina of Kona, Kona of the echo breezes, Kona of the opua clouds, Ruth, Aloua. So with that, we'd actually like to go ahead and get started, if you folks don't mind getting seated. We'd also like to say aloha to Lanakila, Mangauil. Aloha! Wait. Everybody say aloha to Lanakila, aloha! Let's try that again. He's on a totally different universe right now. Aloha! There you go, mahalo nei. Aloha Lanakila, pehea mai nei.
Mai kaino. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. How's everything going?
I take the time to just everyone for coming. And also, Ya'u, I'm up in Oahu right now. I'm eating patients, meeting with the government, with Aloha. We just good sharing typically with the Chancellor, the President of UH City. And it's throughout this whole that we are taking and this what the Mauna Kea, something is really big. And what's really coming forth this whole endeavor is truly the understanding Aloha. And been seeing history being written, but as well as a change and a shift in the heart of humanity, an understanding of how to engage with one another in a better way, how to look at our environment in a different way, how to listen to each other deeper, to not just ho'olohe, not just to hear each other for the fact of listening, but also to ho'orono, to really listen intently. And so we are sharing our stories with you, with everyone. Just bringing the focus again to Mauna Kea and give us the opportunity to share different perspectives again, and showing respect to each other's perspectives and the willingness to learn and share with one another. Yes, we can look back to the history. There has been struggles in the past between the proper management of Mauna Kea, the spirituality of Mauna Kea, the endeavor and the science, the mission of viewing the stars in heavens has been in some conflict in our past. But we look to resolve these conflicts. Mauna Kea is the sacred point of our people, the highest pinnacle point of all of Oceania, or the Hiapo, the firstborn of Wakea, the home of our deities of water, of Poliahu, Linoi, Waiau, Taukokani, Mo'oinanea, Kipuupuauli, Pukahu'ula, all of these akua, these kukua that bring life to our Hawaii. And so we're seeking just more ways to ho'olohe, more ways to truly aloha each other, but also looking the understanding of what is it that we need to survive as a species on this planet. Since everything has been happening, I feel Mauna Kea, who we also refer to as our Mama Mountain, Big Mama, is calling all of her keiki. The attention of the whole world is on Mauna Kea. And I felt there's a bit of a eha that the whole world looks to Hawaii now during a time of what can be perceived as a conflict. But I also see it as an opportunity to show people engaging in proper conversation and proper problem solving. We are at a pinnacle point, what we refer to as a huliau, a time of transition, a time of consciousness, reawakening. And so, a mahalo, Canada, France, Telescopes for being willing to come and share. And again, today is it's a time of perspective, sharing knowledge, sharing mo'olelo. And that's not only ancient stories, but our own stories, our own connections, as we all have our own different pilina or connection to this sacred Mauna Kea. I do hope that everyone just open your heart and your na'au as well as your ears tonight. Just be able to take more in, to find that the Mauna can be much more than just a platform or a stepping stool for us for our own endeavors, but that the Mauna really has something else that can be offered to us, that can give to us. And then for a lot of us Kanaka Maoli who are connected to this mountain, we feel sometimes we look to the great mountain to find what is really needed. And sometimes that journey is not to go farther, but to go deeper within ourselves. And so, everyone, and a big shout out to Phaeton, Kanoa, Uncle Ton, and Honoka'a People's Theater, to all of my ohana who were able to come forward and step in. Hawane, Ruth, mahalo you guys for catching my back. And just mahalo nui loa to everyone for coming out. And that we let us move forward in lokahi, yeah? with unification, with a united voice of, well, we'll find what we will unite for. But above all things, that we would definitely should be able to say amongst all the people of the world that we can unite for aloha and all that that means. So mahalo nui no kako. Thank you all, and please enjoy and listen with all that you have, so we can holomua, so we can move forward in a good way. Mahalo and aloha.
Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Poi kalima. Aloha Lanakila, mahalo na po. Kaoy na sila mahalo. We'd like to introduce to everyone who is here. Lanakila's mom, I believe Auntie Marine is here. Auntie, are you here? Aloha. And so with that, I would like to potentially share intention of Doug and something that Lanakila said. Can everybody say ho'olono? Ho'olono. Ho'olohe. Ho'olohe. Ho'olohe is to hear, but not necessarily to understand and to know and to take in, and to put that which you've learned or that which you've heard in here. Ho'olohe is like when your spouse is telling you, go do this, go do this, go do this, you didn't do it yet. That's ho'olohe, okay? Ho'olono is when you're sitting alo face to face with somebody and you're truly listening, not just with your ears, but you're taking in with your eyes, you're feeling with your na'au, and you're learning spirit and sharing spirit to spirit. That is ho'olono. So we get the difference, yeah? So everybody say ho'olono. Ho'olono. And I believe that that was the intention of this evening tonight, is more listening, listening and feeling with the spirit, and taking care of each other, the people sitting next to you, the people sitting around you in love. And so with that, I'd like to offer Doug Simmons. Mahalo.
So first of all, I want to extend my heartfelt mahalo for the organizing of the event here at the People's Theater. It's a wonderful opportunity for our community to get together. The goals that I have for tonight match beautifully with what Lanakila has outlined as well, and that's a heartening way to start out the evening. I have, as you have seen over the past several weeks, seen a lot of back and forth, and it led to a lot of division, unfortunately, across our community. And it is basically a result of that I concluded that it was time to come together as a community in each other's presence and company, and to sincerely listen to each other's perspectives. Last week or so, it seems like an eternity, I was at the UH Regents meeting, and sitting just in front of you, I recall. And I listened to all of the presentations, and what struck me was the passion. What struck me was the depth, the articulation, and you cannot do that through a keyboard. You have to listen, you have to feel it, you have to see it in their tears, you have to feel it in your gut, and you can't do that over the internet. So, with that, I concluded it's time we start to get together and feel each other through these sorts of communications. I would dearly love if the torch that we light tonight for our community is relit and passed all around the community. I would love to see this repeated all over the Hawaii Island. I dearly would love to see us as a community have a community vision that we develop for the future of Mauna Kea. It's ultimately up to us. Nobody's going to give us that. We have to come together. I love my community, and I love you. I've been here for 30 years. I've raised 3 kids with my wife here on Hawaii Island. And it has been tearing me apart to see what's going on across my staff, across my neighborhood, and across my entire community. So this for me is a shot in the dark. It really was. I didn't know how it turned out. I still don't fully know how. But take to heart that ultimately this is about us and an attempt to find a way of working through our different perspectives, mostly through listening to each other's different perspectives. I've learned a lot through this process. I'm still learning through it. I'm here mostly to learn. I'll share whatever I can that's helpful. And if you're interested in learning as well. So anyway, with that, I still think you're the first speaker. We need an arbitrator. I'm happy to go first, but what do you want to do?
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Hawane Rios. Mahalo.
Is Mauna Kea, born from Wakea and Ho'ohokalani, is Haloa na Kalau Kapalili. From Haloa comes the Kanaka Oiwi, Kanaka Mauli, Mokeia Aina Nei, embedded in the First Nations people of this land is the DNA of the land, of Haloa, of the Kalo, of Ho'ohokalani, of the star realm, and of the firstborn, Mauna Kea. Embedded in us is the dust of the Creator, is the wells of water, of Papa. Embedded in us is the mountain, Mauna Kea. So with that, it is our kuleana, our responsibility, our birthright, to speak when the land is calling to be heard. To speak when the water is calling to be heard. To speak when the mountain is calling to be heard. And this vibration coming from the Mauna
is infinite. Wakea is boundless. All things, all-encompassing, infinite. Mauna Kea is where that infinite energy goes from the depths of the earth to the reaches of the universe. It is boundless, and that is where we come from. And that is where we're learning to return to at this time. Our people have gone on a journey, and in this journey have lost their way and found their way over and over again. And this time is of the change in waters. This time is where we come together in our communities, like this, to learn how to speak, and to speak from the heart, using the intelligence of the heart to convey the matters of the na'au. The na'au, this bowl that connects us to all things, connects us to wakea, connects us to water. And so from my bowl, from my na'au, from my water, I speak to you tonight, to your water, to your bowl, to your heart, from my relations, those who have come before, and those who will come after. I speak to yours, your relations, those who came before, and those who will come after. Mahalo piha for coming together and for opening to this conversation. This is beautiful, and this is needed. This time has brought so much energy and vibration. And in this, there's very human emotions. Confusion, excitement, anger, joy, celebration. And all of these things are teaching us how to communicate again from the heart. For me, my journey started a while back. My ohana. Here's a little story. My sister is a seer. We come from a long line of seers. To not just see with the eyes, but to really see with the ancient wisdom that we all descend from. And she sees the mo'o realm, mo'oinanea, guardian of Waiau, came to her when all of this started rising up and asked, will you try one more time? Will you do everything and anything to protect Mauna Kea? And a commitment was made that day when we all said yes. We would try one more time. And this is our process, this is our journey. We began with ceremony. In this journey, all things for us have begun with the pule. To know that inside of us, there's the wisdom. All of us, each and every one of us, there's wisdom and connection to the other realms, higher realms and lower realms. And to ask of the earth for advice, for guidance, for permission to step in. And so we began with the ceremony. And in that ceremony, we began to hear the messages And the message was to stay rooted in aloha, no matter what, no matter how angry we would get, no matter how confused, no matter how disheartened, we would root in aloha. So we wouldn't get into that place of anger. We wouldn't get into that place of confusion. We wouldn't get into that place of disheartedness, because we would be in alignment with the Mauna. The Mauna is why we are all here. The Mauna is connecting each and every one of us. It is the Mauna that is embracing all of us and teaching us how to live together again. And so in this process, we've been learning the importance of the pule, the importance of the ceremony, the importance of the kahea, the call to the ancestors of this land for guidance. And in this, I began to open up to my own gifts. Because like I said before, we come from a long line of seers. And that is in almost every culture. Seers and mediums and channelers. But we're all connected to the land. And when you connect to the land, when you really connect and bow down to the earth, then you start to hear. And only then did I start to really hear and really see the sacredness of Mauna Kea, the sacredness of the waterways, and how integral this mountain is to this entire island, entire mo'u. How this Mauna teaches the wind. And the wind partners with the ocean. And the ocean teaches the land. He pala Mauna Kea Aloua. Mauna Kea is the sealant to the elements, teacher to the elements. Mauna Kea is the highest Mauna in the Pacific. The highest Mauna in the Pacific. There are stories in all different languages throughout the Pacific about this mountain. This mountain is the first thing that the voyagers saw when they came here. And so it is sacred, and it is divine, and it is a temple. A temple. And I know that because I know that from my na'au. I'm speaking from my personal experiences, my personal connection as a Native woman of this land. So that we're not separate from this mountain, this land, this ocean, this air. We are not separate. That right now it's teaching us oneness, so that I can see you and me and you, that we're not all that different. That we all come from the Honua, the earth, come from the stars. The people of this land come from the Kala. And then here we are in this exchange today. This vibration is so immense coming from this mountain that is touching people all over the world. So I thank this. I thank this entire process because it's bringing people together through the vibration of Aloha. Aloha, which Auntie Luana Busby's words, is a firm commitment to pono, a firm commitment to balance. And right now the earth is out of balance because what we all have done to the earth. And so this is a time for us to right what has happened in the past, to not continue, because we cannot. The earth cannot sustain this anymore, the way we live. And so it's such a beautiful time to be alive. It's a beautiful time to be reconnecting. A beautiful time to be learning about the earth. A beautiful time to be learning about and internalizing what is aloha. A firm commitment to pono, to balance, to truth. And in this time, we are saying we must step forward for the next 7 generations to protect all places and all land masses that have been disturbed, that have been hurt in the past. That this is the time that no matter what our race is or our background, we can do that. Because this is not about race. This is about humanity coming together for the earth. To listen to what the earth needs. It's our time to listen. And to realize that maybe we don't know all things in our very human selves. Maybe we don't know what is right for the mountains, what is right for the waters, what is right for the food. Maybe we need to learn the rights of the mountains, the rights of the water, the rights of the food. That the earth has rights. And now we must gather together to learn how to protect those rights. We live on an island. Whatever happens on the top of the mountain happens to our deepest oceans. It's all connected. And the reflectors of each other. And right now, our oceans are suffering because what we have done, how we live, the oceans are suffering. Right now, the water is suffering because what we have done and what we did. So now when we have the chance, we still have the chance, we should take it together. We live in a time where there is beautiful technologies in the world that can help to right what has been done. Brilliant minds in the world to help right what has been done. And now we have connection back to Papa, to Wakea, to spirit. There is an open channel to that connection. We have a chance. We have a chance to make better decisions. That maybe instead of building on the mountain, what if we use the best technology in the world to put it into orbit? So that no land in the world is harmed or desecrated. What if we didn't change the seeds? What if we didn't compromise the seeds? And we worked to heal the land so that the plants can grow. How beautiful that would be. What if we didn't contaminate keep on contaminating our water, and learn to use this technology to heal our water. What if we could do that? What if we could put our minds and hearts together to do that? What a change that would be. So that there are no sides. We're standing together, side by side. Ho'okahi ka'umauma. Ho'okahi pu'uvai. Of one chest, of one heart, for the Mother Earth, for the sky, for all things. What I've learned in the past is that the Mauna is all. The mountain will take care of herself. That this is for our higher learning. This is a gift to us, all of us. To reunite in a different way. To really learn from the past. To see what has not worked in the past. To see how this government that is set in for us isn't working for us as people of the earth. And to learn and work together to create a better system, better management. Because we all live here. We all live here, so we are all accountable. We drink water, so this matters to every single person. Because Mauna Kea is a watershed. Attracts the vai. And the vai comes down and feeds the aquifers. That I know, because I read that, the words of my kupuna, in the chants, in the mo'olelo, who knew this land better than I do. And so we can learn. We can learn from the land, learn from the words of the ancestors, and learn from each other and with each other how to restore balance in ourselves and connectivity to all things and in our environment. It's such a beautiful time to be alive. Because we are at a transition. Ulihia, uliau. And we can weave what we have learned and what we hear and what we see and create something strong. We can help the healing of the land by learning and listening to the land. It's our birthright to protect these places. It's our birthright, and it's our responsibility, because we, as Kanaka Oiwi, are born from Mauna Kea, Mauna Kea. It is in our genealogy. And so now that name, Mauna Kea, is being said by thousands around the world. What I see is I see people standing taller, chanting louder, walking taller. One step forward, but I know. See pride in people of all nations, people from all mountains. It is a beautiful time to be alive. We see children chanting and singing the name Mauna Kea. We see elders who have worked so hard and dedicated their lives to this land say, I have waited for this my whole life. I have waited to see this kind of unification and solidarity. I have waited my whole life. And that is beautiful. A few years back, Waiau was very small. Waiau, we thought would dry up. And so what did we do? We went and offered vai from all around the world. We went and offered pule and ceremony. People came from all nations and all colors to pray for this water, because through these different portals of communication, we've connected with many who are praying for the water, many who are praying for their mountains. We put the call out, and even if they couldn't come physically, they came with their prayers. And we prayed for this vai to come back. We prayed for the snow to fall. And it came. It came. I saw Waiau at its smallest, which is very symbolic of this movement. It started off very small. And we prayed that the world would hear and feel Mauna Kea. And that took prayers from all people, all colors, all nations, all histories. And those prayers created a vibration of change. It was felt. I feel it. And I see people around that feel it. I went to Waiau just a few days ago, and my eyes have seen a beauty that I cannot describe. Waiau at its fullest I have ever seen with my own eyes. Ever. And there was a moment when it was so small that I didn't know if it was going to come back. I didn't know if this movement would grow this large. And this was a ho'ailona, a sign from the Mother Earth that Mother Earth is in control. Mother Earth has the last say. And that is where I saw Waiau, as full, as beautiful as ever. And that is what I see now, a movement as full and beautiful as ever. Because Mauna Kea is a catalyst. So these people around the world that are chanting Mauna Kea and singing Mauna Kea's name are reconnecting in the heart to their own land. Know your mountains. Know your water. I can see that message is going out into the world, and people are becoming proud of who they are, proud of their connection to Papa, to Wakia in whatever form, in whatever name that they say, however they refer to that which is the earth, that which is the sky. They are learning through this movement where their water comes from and the history of their waters, the stories of their mountains, the songs and chants of their mountains. This is a mountain movement. And it is such a beautiful time to be alive. And so with that, I just ask you and invite you to open to the connection of Mauna Kea, the connection that the people of this land have to Mauna Kea. It is embedded in us. It is us. And it is you. We can make change together. We are making changes together. And it started with a mountain. It all started with a mountain.
Kualnagahei kapugu kaulani kuan oapa kulana kuhaka kaukea wawai kuagu papagu kugai magani kamakani okalani kamakani ula kamakani oi ho oh hey hey. Oh hey hey, ke agagu ano ke agagu gae kugia imauna guanu he gu ba gu ho gu gu kaunia gu mau kamana aqua wa ke.
The chant was written by 4 of us. Kalino Yaklekorn, Kili Iberlama, Hua Case, Hawane Rios. And it speaks about this time, that this time, warriors of peace are rising to connect with the earth, to connect with the mountain. That we're calling on the makani, the different forms of wind, to help move this time of change, help to move all things that didn't work in the past and dissipate, to reach out and call on the deities of the earth, of this land, to come, because we need guidance. And for the protectors of the mountain to rise. And they are rising and forming a bridge, Huanwenwe, a bridge. And that bridge is what we are creating here, together. Aku mau kamanala akapua wakea. Mauna Kea will forever be sacred, is still sacred, is still revered by the people. The people born from that mountain. We are still here. We are still here. We're connecting now with all those who do not come from this place. But you are native to somewhere. You have a mountain. You have water. It just so happened you came here. So Mauna Kea, tallest mountain in the Pacific, is the mountain you see. The waters of Kihalani, of Kohakohau, of Waio. The waters flowing Pakuloa. That is what you dream. So we are here, connected by water, connected by fire, connected at the pu'uwai, the heart. Because it all starts with the mountain. And what a beautiful time it is to be alive.
Leo hilo dawa bedawahi hae kuhi kuwa kuhau kuhi alo abo mailaya we apai ka hulu ko naneki ina upolo ka akau e kau ka hama ya kala lele ka ba mele bi olwahi lawe lele ka ba mele bi olwahi lawe Inat hawa, no one day, they are like me. Ida pondo e kawala ina, hoi dawa, no one day, aba paita haru panelele huai, papaita haru panelele huai. Nakahawmana ke apuni o, nakihimana lo apumole, wala la imuli ko hiviye. Iemele kama wananui pama mautu motu Inat hawa no one day They are like me Ita pondo e kawala ina Hoi dawa no one day Papa ita hari kupanelele huai Papa ita hari kupanelele huai Nakahawmana ke apuni o, nakihimana lo apumole, wala la imuli ko hiviye. Iemele kama wananui pama mautu motu Inat hawa, no one day, they are like me. Ida pondo e kawala ina, hoi dawa, no one day, papa ita hari kupanelele huai, papa ita hari kupanelele huai. Inat hawa, no one day, they are like me. Ida pondo e kawala ina, hoi dawa, no one day, papa ita hari kupanelele huai, papa ita hari kupanelele huai. Leo hilo dawa bedawa, heora, he halo ibiloe.
That is a resonant tone of the earth through the voices. That is the only way I know how to truly connect to you, all of you, in your water, your bowl, your heart. Through that sound, through that resonant tone, through that vibration that comes through the body, from Papa, from Wakea, from Mauna Kea, from Aloua Nakalau Kapalili, to the first Kanaka, all the way down. Because in the end, remember, it is our birthright. It is our kuleana. Mauna Kea is everything we stand for. Everything. No ku'ula hui, e ha'awi pau, Aloua. Words written by Hanalei Ferguson. For my nation, for my Mauna, I will give everything. Everything. And I know, and I see that that is how other people are rising into this movement with commitment and with so much love, rooted in so much love for this place and for one another. That is the difference about this movement. That is the change within the movement, is this choice to do this with love, to remind with love, to step forward with love, to communicate with love, with aloha, with reverence, respect, grace, strength, and courage. So from my water, my relations, to yours, aloha. Aloha nui, I ka piko o ke aloha. Ke aloha o ka aina, ia ka kou. Ke aloha ka mauna, ia ka kou. Aloha nui, aloha nui, aloha nui.
If you will, I would like for you to turn to the person next to you or behind you or in front of you. So if you can do that right now, please. And I would like for you to repeat after me. From my bowl, look at your partner. From my bowl to your bowl. From my na'o to your na'o. From my water to your water. From my heart to your heart. Okay. Mahalo. Hawane, thank you so much. Mahalo nui. Mahalo Hawane Rios. Family and friends, Doug Simmons. Wait for him.
Spectacular fashion this time. So if anybody was doubting what I said before about the importance of being present in that type of communication, I rest my case. That was a beautiful presentation by a couple of beautiful local girls. And it demonstrates if you don't feel it, you're not hearing it. And that's why I wanted to bring everybody together, to feel that passion. It's a passion that I share with them, and what I seek is some way of resonating between our respective passions across the community to find a future for Mauna Kea that we are all proud of, not just tolerate, but we're actually proud of. So this presentation I'm providing for you tonight actually started for me as sort of a journey after the TMT groundbreaking. I was there, we all saw what happened, it made me think a lot. And I kind of went in my own little journey to process what I'd witnessed there. And over the holidays started to craft a presentation to capture kind of where I'm at and my interpretation of what happened and our broader interpretation for the future of Mauna Kea. And it was through that process that I pretty quickly determined that it was not going to be a presentation that was about changing minds. We can only change our own minds. Nobody can do that for us. It's all about providing information, being open-hearted, open-minded about trying to understand different perspectives. And if nobody changes their mind tonight, that's just fine. I'm here as a resource to try and provide a multitude of perspectives that over the course of this presentation will drill down into what gives me chicken skin about Mauna Kea. And I really mean that. For me, it's a truly exciting place from so many different perspectives. So to start off with, I'm very pleased to be here representing Canada France Hawaii Telescope. Thank you to my staff who showed up. You're not getting, there is no overtime pay, but we'll buy some extra beer the next Pauhana Friday. We'll make it up to you. I have to be a little careful. I don't represent TMT. I don't represent UH. I am a 30-year sort of veteran astronomer and member of our community. And that's the hat that I wear tonight. So while I can take questions on a variety of fronts, be aware that I can't really represent much beyond either my role as a CFHT director, but this is really a story about me and my perspectives. It's very personal about this mountain and about its future in a global sense. So we start off with our mountain there below that we all love so much, and there are many ways of characterizing what it means. And this is one that we've heard many times that really does resonate with me, where Earth meets sky. It captures a sense that there's a connection, as we heard before, between the land and the heavens above. It also captures the sense that Mauna Kea is an incredibly powerful portal in so many different ways on the universe. And amongst the various perspectives I'm going to share with you tonight, I thought the first one would best be conveyed not through my voice, but through song and through pictures. And I'm going to show you some pictures that I've taken and other members of my family have taken over the past sort of 5 to 10 years or so, scattered around Mauna Kea that can help me convey this very first important message that I'd like to transmit. So with that, I'll rejoin you in about 2 minutes. There. That's a picture of my wife Judy next to someone I'm sure many of you know. He was actually captured in a recent Hawaiian Airlines magazine called The Green Baron, and he is responsible for the reforestation of much of the Hakalau Refuge. If you haven't been there, they just had, I think last weekend, their second ever Earth Day open house. It's a spectacular opportunity to look at the reforestation project they have there and how they have demonstrated that by bringing back the natural vegetation, the trees, the fauna, you're actually seeing native Hawaiian birds come back into that region. And you can, in a sense, undo the damage. What I want to transmit initially is that when you think of Mauna Kea, we tend to all be thinking about the summit. For me, when I think about it, it's top to bottom. I've been an astronomer for 30 years now, but the reality is the amount of time I spent on Mauna Kea as an astronomer is microscopic compared to the number of hours I spent hiking around Mauna Kea. It should come as no surprise looking at those pictures that I'm an avid upland game bird hunter. I have a hunch, we've got a lot of hunters in the room tonight. I assume I'm not alone. You know what I mean. It's a special place. In fact, for me, I have a little ritual when I get out of my now completely beaten out truck that you saw in there in several pictures that drives my bird dog nuts. And basically what I do is when I get up there, it's cold, but I always stop and put the bed down on the truck, have a beat out thermos full of coffee, and I sit and drink coffee and I watch the sunrise. And I smell the mamani and I just take it in because it is for me a deep place. It's a spiritual moment for me. As I said, my dog is just running circles thinking, why do you go hunting right now? But for me, it's part of the process of bonding to the land through those many, many hours I've spent hiking all over Mauna Kea. So I thought the next perspective I would show you are, in fact, actual perspectives. And what I've done is generate, thanks to Google Earth, recognizing that there are quite a few probably in the audience who haven't spent that much time on Mauna Kea, a little sort of simulated drone overflight of Mauna Kea to give you an appreciation for the expanse of this incredible shield volcano. And this is a simulation that has the altitude of the overflight at about 17,000 feet, so it's about 3,000 feet above the summit. I'll put it in motion here, and we're going to fly due north, sort of out towards Laupahoehoe. And if it looks like we're coming over a steep sort of cliff, that's because it in fact is very steep off of the north side of Mauna Kea. As we go out, you can see the areas that have been completely clear-cut long ago as part of the cane industry. And it's fairly small regions that have been left behind associated with various forestation projects over the years. Now we're starting to look towards the northeast, so the summit is to our southwest, passing over a region in which there's, on the right-hand side, Parker Ranch cattle country. Unfortunately, the lights are a little bit too bright right here. Right in here is a road that's called R1. It starts at Halepahaku and goes all the way around. It's an incredible four-wheeling experience. Right in here, black sand dunes. You feel like you're on the surface of the moon right in there. It's truly spectacular. See on the right here, this is the fence line. Everything from here down is ranch land, basically been eaten by cows. Above, it's mamani and natural vegetation. So now we're starting to take a left-hand turn here again. R1 takes you all the way around the mountain. It's about a 4 or 5 hour four-wheeling drive. The big pu'u field. Here are the big switchbacks that take you from Halepahaku and the visitor center all the way up to the top of the mountain. These are the pine trees that you see on the road. You go right through those on the drive up to Mauna Kea access road. So now we're turning left. This is Daniel Keanoe Saddle Road. And we're coming up on this region. This is PTA, Kalakaua training area. Many of you drive this road, I'm sure. You're probably not aware of the enormity of Bradshaw Airfield. It's right off the side. And when I'm up here hunting, looking down, you get an appreciation for that enormous structure that they put down on PTA. So now we're coming around an area I know really well. A lot of the hunters in here will know it as Ka'ohe, or the G unit. And down here is the Ka'ohe lease. These cuts in the mamani forest were done years ago, I believe as part of the effort to improve the habitat for wildlife in the region. So lots of goats running around in this area, and great place to take kids. It's an easy hike for them and expose them to the outdoors for the first time. Now we're flying due north. Waimea is off in the background. It's a little off the camera or the perspective there. We're going to swing back around a beautiful pu'u field off to the southwest of the summit itself. Here is Skyline Road. That'll take you up about 10,000 foot elevation. Great chukar hunting up there if you're willing to put your truck through it. It's kind of a long haul. And then coming back around to the south side of Mauna Kea, we see an enormous gorge cut, I'm told, during the last ice age when Mauna Kea was still active. Here we're doing a flight over the beautiful pictures you saw in the previous presentation of Lake Waiau, the mountain road here that you're familiar with. And finally, we're going to put it in pause right here, and we've gone all the way around Mauna Kea. in about 2 minutes there. So I wanted to give you that sort of overview of the enormity of this profoundly sacred, profoundly important mountain. For me, it's the whole enchilada when I think about Mauna Kea. It's not just the summit. I want our community to appreciate that as well. It's the entire environment that we should be aware of and try and protect. The fact of the matter is, though, we came mostly here to look into various perspectives about the summit of Mauna Kea. And that's what I'm going to focus on for the remainder of this presentation. Mauna Kea is at the cross-section of a number of different things right now. It's actually an incredible cross-section in the sense of the frontier of what we know and what we don't know about the universe. I say that because in my youth, I took great pride in all of the neat stuff I knew about the universe is that I grow hair and it falls out. I now know that I basically don't know anything about the universe. It's part of the process of exploration and learning. And it's kind of at this frontier right here, this intersection, that we are right now with the research undergoing right now at the summit of Mauna Kea. So it is an incredible intersection in a lot of different ways. It's the intersection of the past and the future. I'll expand upon that in just a few minutes. It's at the intersection of science, religion, and culture. These are things that I would dearly love to see resonate as opposed to being on opposite sides sometimes. And it's also at the intersection of earth and sky. Mauna Kea is right there at the crossroads and the crosshair, if you will, of all these things. And that's why I think it's gathering so much attention. It's truly unique in that sense. So let's do a little exploration of what we actually know about the universe. And start off with a little game that I like to play in terms of listing out things that we now know about the universe or don't know about the universe over the past, say, 30 years when I entered graduate school at the University of Hawaii. So first of all, we'll start out, do black holes really exist? Well, when I was a grad student, we didn't know. There was a lot of debate and controversy. Now we do know. There's no question about it, in large part to research done on the summit of Mauna Kea. These are fascinating objects. They are unbelievable rips in space and time. Next, planets run around other stars. Do we know that or not? Well, now we do. When I was a kid growing up, I had no idea that I lived to see the time that thousands of planets would be detected, many of them from the surface of Mauna Kea. What's the universe really made of? Do we know that? Turns out we don't. Most of the universe is in an unknown form. This is fertile ground for fantastic discovery. This is a very recent result in terms of discovery of dark energy. How big is the universe? We don't know. Could be finite, could be infinite. And you want to see some heated debates between cosmologists asking this question. Either way could go. Age of the universe, do we know that? Yeah, it turns out we do. About 13.7 billion years. That one we have down by now. And how about universe, where did it come from? Deep question. Reality is, we don't know. How do you get something from nothing? That's a tough one to crack. A future presentation I'm going to dedicate to that one because I find that one particularly fascinating. The ultimate magic trick. How do you generate a universe supposedly from nothing? And finally, is there life out there? Well, of course we don't know, but in time, in fact, in our lifetimes, I honestly believe that we will know that there is life out there beyond our own. So with that list of questions and answers, I posed for you what did the Mauna Kea Observatories contribute to each of those, and it hasn't been meaningful, and in fact not transformative. And the reality is that those observatories, in fact, have done all of these things over their sort of 30 or 40 year lifetime that they've been in operation so far. So let's explore these a little bit more. How do we know black holes really exist? Well, this is courtesy Keck Observatory, and it's a fascinating video. So each of these is a star. This little object right here represents something that's completely invisible, and yet look what it's doing to the passage of these stars in its presence. They bend around something that's invisible. And it turns out when you do the math and work it through and calculate these orbits, that object has a mass 4 million times the mass of our sun. It's invisible, and yet it has an incredible amount of mass associated with it. The best example we know of a black hole right there, and that's courtesy of Keck Observatory here on the Big Island. One of the neatest experiments that's actually occurring this year is called the Event Horizon Telescope, and the radio facilities on Mauna Kea are part of that. And it's the first time through a global network of radio telescopes to actually take a picture of a black hole. This is so cool. I mean, this is the stuff only Hollywood in principle could do. This is the only chance we've got. This is the nearest big black hole to us that we have. And
I'm told the data is being collected this year, maybe in a year or two, once it's fully reduced, we will see the first picture of a black hole. Planets around other stars, well, how do we know anything about that? How does Mauna Kea contribute to it? Well, there's a history here, and this dates back to when I was Gemini Observatory Director. I took great pride in these particular observations. This is the first picture ever of a planet outside of a star beyond our own. And these 3 white dots, I'm going to hit this one harder later on, but these are all planets in the first extrasolar system detected beyond ours, both courtesy Gemini Observatory. What's the universe made of? Very good question. And what we know is that through observations of a particular type of exploding star, most of the universe is made of this mysterious stuff called dark energy. I'll talk about it a little bit later. The combination of dark energy and dark matter means that only about 4% of the universe, what we are made of, what we understand, exists in a sort of a palatable form. Everything else is in an unknown form. That's why I said we don't know anything about the universe, and it's really a humbling concept. And this, of course, was worthy of the Nobel Prize just a few years ago. And then I'm going to skip forward to life out there. What are we doing on Mauna Kea to detect that life? Well, a couple of examples. One, at CFHT, I have to sort of toot my own horn a little bit. A very special instrument is being developed to look for planets around nearby stars, and it's being synchronized to an instrument or a satellite called TESS that NASA is launching in a few years. And the idea basically is to look for planets transiting in front of stars, and when they're in this case where they're actually in front of the star, look for the spectral signature of that planet's atmosphere when light is passing through it. And this is a beautiful example of where you need very large advanced telescopes, both in space and on the ground, to look for those biomarkers and to pick up signs like ozone or oxygen or other biomarkers that can give you convincing evidence that life exists beyond our own. This, too, is a Nobel Prize in the works at some point. So I got this chart from my friend over at Gemini, the current director, Marcus Kissler-Patig. This is a good way of trying to capture the importance of Hawaii astronomy worldwide. So this is a plot over time of the number of papers produced worldwide. And the only ones I want you to look at are the top 2 here. And this is for Hubble Space Telescope and ESO-TOL. That's basically the sum total of most of Hawaii, or most of Chilean astronomy. So where, may you ask, is Hawaii on this chart? Well, in a sense, we're off the chart. We're number 1. We are that way year after year. And for me, this is something to be really proud of. When I see this chart, I don't see that as a product of a bunch of astronomers per se using these telescopes. I see this as a product of our community. This is KTA, this is Costco, this is Chevron, this is everything that our community provides to make it possible to provide this type of knowledge about the universe. We are a major contributor to our understanding of the universe. It's nice to be in that position, and I do what I can in my position to keep us that way. So why are we number 1? Well, a good part of the reason is because Mauna Kea is unique. It's got a unique shape, and it's got a unique position worldwide if you think about it. Of course, Mauna Kea is a giant shield volcano, relatively gentle slope, and you all are familiar with the trade winds that dominate our wind flow over the Hawaiian Islands. These are mostly east-west airflows that pass over the Hawaiian Islands. And think about it, that air has been passing over the ocean thousands of miles before it strikes the site of Mauna Kea. It has a relatively smooth flow, relatively little turbulence in it. And thanks to the fact that Mauna Kea has such a gentle slope, it goes up and over the top of Mauna Kea, and you do not generate turbulence along the line of sight for these telescopes looking up and out. If you, for example, for those of you who have flown into Denver Airport, you can ask, why can't you put telescopes in the Rockies? Those are high mountains too, even higher. Well, if you've flown into Denver Airport, you know pretty much every time you get bounced out of your seat. That's because you have turbulence over those very sharp, jagged mountains that would lead to very poor image quality from your telescopes there. It's the combination of position in the middle of the ocean and the gentle slope of Mauna Kea that is unique worldwide. Of course, beyond that, Mauna Kea is a high-altitude site, and that means that certain types of radiation, particularly infrared and microwave, can actually reach the summit, even if it cannot get all the way down to the lower elevations. And the telescopes on Mauna Kea have been optimized to take advantage of that. Also off the side, it doesn't look obvious, but the fact that these clouds are here and not above the summit is also kind of a unique aspect for the the way Mauna Kea works is a unique astronomy portal. So there's a sort of a diurnal inversion layer that comes up and down. And anybody who's been at HP knows this. You know, normally in the morning hours it's relatively clear, and then towards the afternoon it gets wet. And this is a time-lapse movie that shows the so-called inversion layer setting up over the middle of Saddle Road. And you notice that it never actually gets up and over the top of the summit of Mauna Kea. In addition, looking down through that layer of cloud that is very stable, that means you're also blocking city lights from below. This is a low-light video from CFHT, and you'll see the lights of Hilo starting to sort of leak through the cloud itself. But beyond that, it's able to block and provide an extremely dark, incredible vista upon the universe above the cloud layer below us. So these are all unique things that add up to Mauna Kea having this truly unique sort of set of characteristics worldwide. So here we are with the Mauna Kea Observatories at about 14,000 feet. I thought I'd give you a little timeline for how they've come into existence over the years. Started out with the venerable UH 88-inch. That was sort of the grad student toy that we had back when I was a student at UH. In other words, all the professors got the big telescopes, and the students had to fight over the UH 88-inch. And then about 10 years later, that was the state of the art. These 4-meter class telescopes, CFH, RTF, and UCRT came online. The radio community came online about 10 years after that with JCMT and CSO. Not long after, Keck Observatory 1 and 2 in the early 90s, and they dominated worldwide astronomy, no question about it, for a decade. It took that long to get the next generation of big telescopes, namely Gemini and Subaru, on site. And then for completeness, we have SMA that's about 11 years old now. It's the interferometer near the TMT site. And then the UH Hilo Ho'okea telescope, which is basically there intended for educational purposes. So combined, this is a unique collection of telescopes. There is nothing like it that has ever been built in the world, and as a result of that, their collective output of knowledge about the universe is unmatched. You see a beautiful image of Maui in the background here as well. So one of the questions I get is, why do you need so many telescopes? Oh, we can invert that. If you build TMT, why can't you get rid of the others? Because it's so powerful. And the answer to that is because they actually function as a system. They don't all do the same thing. And we share capabilities across the telescopes in all kinds of ways. So for example, if you need an image or a picture in sort of a wide field format, something bigger than, say, the size of the moon, you go to CFHT, UCRT, or Subaru. They have the panoramic cameras that can do that. If you need high resolution work to look at the very finest detail in objects around the universe, you go to Subaru, Keck, or Gemini. They have the big telescopes and the laser adaptive optic systems to do that. If you need to look at objects at radio or microwave wavelengths, use the telescopes down below in the valley there, and VLBA is well below. Suppose you need infrared observations of something. Well, in that case, UCRT, IRTF, or Gemini, which is by far the most infrared optimized telescope ever built. If you need ultraviolet, it turns out CFHT is the last of its species in the entire northern hemisphere for sort of complicated reasons. And we are the go-to telescope to be able to look at the universe at short wavelengths. Astrometry, CFHT as well. That's the science of measuring the precise positions of objects in the sky. If you have particularly faint objects you want to look at, that would be a combination of the big ones, Subaru, Keck, Gemini. Planetary science, it turns out that's a NASA telescope, and over half of their time, I believe, every year is allocated to planetary science. Target of opportunity, this is a relatively new field in which objects that are very fleeting in their nature are detected, and you need to be able to reconfigure and point your telescope in a matter of minutes to be able to acquire and observe them. The Gemini is uniquely outfitted to be able to do that. And then finally, technology and development. There's a type of infrared detector called the Hawaii detector that is actually built into its acronym. That's been developed over the years by Don Hull and the crew at the University of Hawaii. Those were essentially all sort of flight tested at the 88-inch. It's a great example of how the technology that's developed here in Hawaii has helped astronomy worldwide. And if TMT is built, looking at high resolution, infrared, and faint object as being its bread and butter capabilities amongst that suite. So the answer is, because they all do different things, and because they work as a collective system, they are actually capable of doing much more than if they were just redundant and doing all the same thing all the time. Moving on to a little bit different topic, but one that's just as important, that touches a bit with the previous speaker. For me, Mauna Kea is it requires a sense of balance on multiple fronts. And I tend to liken it as the so-called classic three-legged stool. There's the environmental component. This, by the way, is my son Jacob planting silver sword. One of my sort of pet projects is to chase up there and pull fireweed. It's a wonderful job all around OMKM. If you're not aware, go on their website. You can sign up to it. It's a great community event. And every 6 weeks or so, they organize a weed pulling operation. I hauled so much crap out of my truck the last time down at the dump. It feels futile, but when I go up there, I'm looking, because weeds grow slow at that altitude, you can keep on top of them without using any poison at all. And the idea is that we're going to replenish in this sort of island across Mauna Kea around Honoka'a in the visitor center with nothing but native Hawaiian vegetation. But the first thing you got to do is get rid of all the damn fireweed. And I've spent, I don't know how many times. It's not fun, it's not glamorous, and you get a free lunch at HP. But if you're into that, come talk to me, and I'll sign you up for a fireweed pick. So back to my sort of three-legged stool, in that what we need to do is find a sense of balance between science, the cultural aspects, and the environmental aspects of that mountain. For me, they are all important. You cannot go one way or the other. You cannot have a two-legged stool, and I definitely don't believe in the balance of a one-legged stool at all. And the way we do that is mostly through this document. It turns out I'm also on the Mauna Kea Management Board, and we have sort of an oversight responsibility for the Office of Mauna Kea Management. And this is the path forward for me. This is something I'm very passionate about. This document represents a tremendous amount of input across the community and across various agencies. It is a living document. It is not cast in stone. In fact, at the last Mauna Kea management meeting, we approved the invasive species component of this, the path to deal with whatever comes up in terms of potentially Lake Waiau, for example, having something in it that doesn't belong there, and providing an immediate reaction response to those sorts of species invasions. I remind everybody that the CMP is a compromise, and by definition, as a compromise, it's imperfect. It has things in there that aren't particularly helpful from an astronomy operations standpoint, but I nonetheless dedicate our observatory, as do all the observatories, to follow it to the letter. Because if you start cherry-picking compromises, that fundamentally erodes their integrity. You don't have a compromise anymore. So I urge all of our community to become familiar with the CMP. If you don't like what's in it, it is a living document. Come talk to me about it. It can be added to, it can be modified over time. It reflects a tremendous amount of input across the entire community. It is the way forward in so many different ways. In fact, to highlight that, I thought I'd share with you about a 90-second video of my testimony in front of the land board in favor of passage of the CMP.
I personally spent thousands of hours walking and hiking around the slopes of Mauna Kea. I've done that in the capacity of lots of my friends here on the Big Island. I'm a lifelong upland game bird hunter. But if anybody knows about hunting, most of the time you don't actually spend hunting, you spend time walking around. And for me, it has left me with some of the most profound and valuable memories of my lifetime, that which I've spent on Mauna Kea. The fairly feisty individual we now know as Galileo. These are pictures of the planets in our solar system. This is the first picture of our solar system. It was a key part of the revolutionary shifting of paradigm that people had at that time. It brought down the theory that Earth was the center of the universe. It gave us a completely different perspective, that we are on a planet, and that planet's among other planets that go around the sun, that had enormous social implications, religious implications, and beyond. So I want to show you another picture. This is a picture of a star. It's tens of light years away. You see that in the middle. And surrounded by that are three white dots. This, too, is a picture of a solar system. And the remarkable thing is that this picture was taken by a telescope 50 miles behind you right now on the summit of Mauna Kea, in part due to the technologies and the unique conditions that are there that we enjoy every night. These two pictures I decided to present to you as evidence of the incredible potential for discovery. there are 400 years that it took us to get from the first picture of the solar system to the second picture of the solar system. That's the magnitude of the discovery that was made. These are important not just to me, not just to my children, not just to lots of people. These are discoveries important to everybody in the world. And it's important because Mauna Kea is a key portal on the universe for everybody. I saw the words earlier this morning, portal on the Hawaiian universe. I think it's even more than that. It's a portal for the universe for all of humanity. And these are stepping stones in understanding whether or not there are more planets out there, and ultimately if we're alone or not in this universe.
And batteries are wearing out. So if you're curious as to what I was holding up in front of the landboard, these are the pictures. On the left is the original sketch by Galileo in a cold winter nearly 400 years or so ago. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and of course the crests of Venus right there below. And then the second picture of a solar system on the right, those white dots representing the planets that were discovered just a few years ago. I liken this to some heroes of mine. It's part of a great voyage of discovery. It's not just about counting objects in the sky. I liken this to the first map-making exercises in the past and the great voyages of discoveries. Yours being Lewis and Clark. They were the moonshot of their time. And of course, the great Polynesian voyagers, they used the technology to and through its limits to achieve what was done in that spectacular feat of mapping out the Pacific Ocean, identifying these tiny little features, these islands, and ultimately colonizing them. So when I think about this achievement of finding planets around nearby stars, I'm an optimist. I actually believe we will find the technology to visit them someday. And when that technology is available, we'll send robots, just like we send the planets now, and those robots will be directed at stars and planets that we discovered right here from Hawaii on the summit of Mauna Kea. Let me get back to this and explain how this particular object was in fact observed repeatedly by different telescopes. So it was observed initially at Gemini, then not long thereafter, I think within a year or so, observed over at Keck. I believe it was this planet right here generated this spectrum in the infrared, detecting methane in its atmosphere the first time. Not long after that, over at SMA, they generated this first map. This shows cold, dust, and gas. This is the central star right here. And this is just residual material that never actually coalesced into the planet itself. This is to help bring home the point that what we do across the summit of Mauna Kea is a tremendous amount of collaboration, and it really does function as a system. They are not isolated in any sense of the word. It's a great collaboration. It's a wonderful place to work because so many of us have worked at multiple telescopes over the years that we understand the capabilities and the people very well. Mauna Kea is also a profoundly sacred site, and I use those words with all deliverance. I fully understand and get that and appreciate that. There's a video that includes Hanalei Ferguson. I don't know if Hanelei's in the audience, I hope so. He made a passionate presentation to the Mauna Kea Management Board about 6 months or so ago. It was a tough thing if you think about it. I think he suspected that he would meet a lot of resistance with his message. I was so impressed that afterwards I walked up, introduced myself, gave my business card, and asked him to come share that message with my staff. And that was the best attended presentation I've seen in a long time. I got nothing but positive feedback. The worst thing that can happen, if any of you will want to do that as well for us at CFHT, you're going to get a free lunch out of it. What could go wrong? If you'd like to come, please do. My door is open. We are yearning for what you know about this mountain. It's the greatest way that I know to try and sort of cross-pollinate our perspectives. As the highest peak in all of Hawaii, of course, Mauna Kea has special significance. And there's something of a perfect storm in the re-emergence of Native Hawaiian culture and the emergence of technologies and sort of the discovery of Mauna Kea as an incredibly powerful astronomical site led to a lot of protests and activisms back in the 90s. Probably the biggest difference back then between then and now, we didn't have social media. Social media just totally rewrites how you conduct these sorts of activities. And I think back to that. I honestly felt at the time, I was a graduate student at the time, that there was no way out, that it was going to be very damaging from pretty much every perspective. In reality, good things happened. We have the Office of Mauna Kea Management, we have the Rangers, we have a completely different philosophy and approach, I believe. We have Native Hawaiian culture that all the staffs now receive. Good things happened out of that. And because of that, deep down, I still feel, even if I don't understand how, good things will happen out of this too. Somehow, I believe in our community that we'll work it out, and we'll find that everybody can not just tolerate it, but actually experience a better outcome than we ever had before. So the future of Mauna Kea astronomy is absolutely inextricably linked to Hawaiian culture. There's no question about it. Pictures from, I believe, October 8th and October 9th from last year. I was there. This is the first time that I saw Lanakila. I was in part of the sort of the end of the convoy of vans that went up to the summit of Mauna Kea for that event. And these are headlines straight out of the Tribune Herald that I kept thinking, you know, I may want to show those in a presentation someday, and here I am. We can't keep on desecrating. Protester blockade was not part of the plan, etc. You all know the story. That story included something that I wanted to transmit out to the community. It turns out the day after the protest, and the dust was still settling, a lot of people were really scratching their heads as to what had really happened there. And I was contacted by a reporter at the Hilo Tribune. My assistant, Mercedes, took a message. I had to get out to the office quickly, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to give him a call. I've only got 2 minutes, but let me see if I can get something to stick in the paper. And I'm glad it did. And this is what I said. The alternative would have been the TMT groundbreaking would be remembered by people being handcuffed and hauled from the mountain. That doesn't help anybody. Imagine my reaction when I saw this. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not here to lay blame to anybody. For me, this is just a calamitous breakdown in communications. The breakdown occurred years ago. It's now manifest today in this event here tonight and what you've seen in recent weeks. We need to find ways that this doesn't happen in the future and that people feel proud to be in each other's company up and down the summit of Mauna Kea. Another recent article, this time from the North Hawaii News, interesting one in which 2 authors were asked to provide material for it, of which I'll present a single paragraph from each. This is from somebody at TMT. Many of you know Sandra Dawson, and this is what she wrote. TMT has already brought benefits to North Hawaii. For 6 years, we've supported various education programs such as robotics, including the TMT Big Island VEX Robotics Tournament, internships, the Hawaii Science Fair, and a number of additional outreach efforts. The Think Fund will provide $1 million per year for STEM education on Hawaii Island and was initiated last fall. By the way, I'm also the the Think Fund Advisory Committee. This is what the other author said. This is being from Pua Case. Seeing the most recent snowfall on the slopes of Mauna Kea, a cloak adorning the bosom of Poliahu, we honor the beauty, sanctity, and divine connection to this beloved sacred mountain. In Waimea, where many of us were born and raised, people with cameras were parked along the roadways to capture the magnificence of this majestic one who feeds us, quenches our thirst, protects us, and connects us to the heavens and to the earth. If you read those two, it's not obvious that they're even talking about the same mountain. They are that different. I ask you to remember this part of Pua's article, though. Connects us to the heavens and to the earth. I'll come back to that later, but it's foretelling of her description of Mauna Kea. Essentially no common vision between these perspectives because, in a sense, they are looking in completely opposite directions. I would argue that Pua is cherishing the past, which is absolutely critical, and Sandra is cherishing the future. And it isn't any surprise that when people look in opposite directions, they don't find common ground. Here, of course, is the picture of the star we had to start off this event, Lanakila. A lot of people saw this video and they saw me in it. I got a lot of pings from friends around the world and were asking, it looked pretty intense. I will say that, in fact, I talked to Lanakila offline. Immediate reaction, actually a pretty nice guy. You saw that in the video. And I never felt threatened at any point during this whole process, though it certainly felt intent. In fact, that's the back of me right there in this video. So in a sense, this is a debate. I realize there are different nuances to this, and I don't want to oversimplify, but I do want to make an important perspective, or offer an important perspective for you. a debate between science and religion that we know we've seen for centuries, sort of a collision, if you will, that in the end amounts to nothing other than sort of shattered perspectives on the ground. It tends to get bogged down in details. Not to oversimplify, but when these two entities in culture today collide, that is where it unfortunately just goes off the rails. So to explore this, I decided to do a little research and looked into a couple of physicists who have radically different views on religion. The first is Charlie Towns, who was a wonderful guy. I mean, a truly generous, kind person. Nobel laureate, inventor of the laser. Okay, so this guy's smart. He was also a devout Christian. I wonder what he thought about science and religion and how they can function together. And this is what Charlie wrote. Science tries to understand what our universe is like and how it works, including us humans. Religion is aimed at understanding the purpose and meaning of our universe, including our own lives. If the universe has a purpose or meaning, this must be reflected in the structure and functioning, and hence in science. So you could tell Charlie was connecting these things as both a scientist and a man of faith. Here's another one, another hero of mine, Richard Feynman. Many of you will know him. He passed away better part of 2 decades ago. When I was at Caltech doing my undergraduate work, he was still there, and an incredibly nice guy. Nobel laureate physicist, I would rank him amongst the top 10 scientists of the 20th century. I put him up with Einstein and Bohr and others. He was an atheist, and he had some interesting views that I thought would be useful to share with you tonight. But what made Richard Feynman so unique as a scientist is that he could take complex concepts and distill them down in terms that were fairly easy to understand. And a great example of that is when the Challenger blew up. It's near and dear to me. I grew up in South Florida, and Cape Kennedy was only about a 90-minute drive north of us, so this had a lot of impact for us in Florida at the time. And Richard Feynman was appointed by President Reagan to be on the so-called Blue Ribbon panel tasked with looking into what actually led to the Challenger disaster. And the setting of this video I'm going to show you is that Richard is surrounded by military brass, industrial types, all kinds of political figures on this Blue Ribbon panel. He's in the back of the set of seats, and he does the following.
That was Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist who startled the commission months ago when he dipped an O-ring into his glass of ice water to show that it wouldn't work when it was cold.
I took this stuff that I got out of your seal, and I put it in ice water. And I discovered that when you put some pressure on it for a while and then undo it, it maintains, it doesn't stretch back, it stays the same dimension. In other words, for a few seconds at least, and more seconds than that, there's no resilience in this particular material when it's at a temperature of 32 degrees. I believe that has some significance for our problem.
It was a classic Feynman moment. He pulls out a pitcher of ice water with a piece of rubber and a clamp, and everybody had an OMG moment. Now I get it. Now I know what brought down the shuttle. He had that knack. So what did he say about science and religion? How can we draw inspiration to support these two pillars of Western civilization so that they may stand together in full vigor, mutually unafraid? This is not the central problem of our time. I was shocked when I read this. An atheist is equating science and religion. How did he do that? And why did he do that? I think deep down it's because Richard Feynman knew that both were probing the inner spirit the best that people have to offer. Even if he didn't necessarily believe in God, he felt that it was an incredibly important component of our culture and of our civilization. He also went on to say this: the remark which I read somewhere, that science is all right as long as it doesn't attack religion, has the clue I needed to understand the problem. As long as it doesn't attack religion, it need not be paid attention to, and nobody has to learn anything. It's going to be cut off from society except for its applications, and thus be isolated. And then we have this terrible struggle to try and explain things to people who have no reason to want to know. But if they want to defend their own point of view, they'll have to learn what yours are just a little bit. So I suggest, maybe correctly and perhaps wrongly, that we are all a little too polite. Another Feynman insight there. So I really zeroed in on this one. That if they want to defend their own point of view, they'll have to learn what yours is just a little bit. I want to explore that and I want to invert it. Let's take Feynman at his word by casting Native Hawaiian concerns about development of Mauna Kea in terms that I can personally relate to. And this is something that Hanalei mentioned when he was with us at CFHT. Basically, the statement was, how would you feel, Doug, if it was your church? So I'm going to answer that by answering it. And I am number 10 in my family. I'm the product of a mother that paid attention to the Pope. I almost didn't make it. 10 out of 10. Tough family, classic Catholic upbringing. So here's our church, St. Joe's Church. I bet you many of you have been there before. We've had our kids baptized and offered First Communion there as members of the Catholic faith. And on the inside of this church, you'll see some of the most beautiful koa furniture anywhere on the island, including the altar there. And I confess that when I receive communion, I'm a woodworker. I do a lot of woodworking. I'm mostly paying attention to the wood and not the priest. We'll work that out later, I figure, because this is really impressive woodworking up at the altar. So to try and explain my answer to Hanalei, I decided to invent myself in a little sketch. So I'll put myself on one side of the altar, and I had to come up with a character that I thought was fitting to sort of be my counterpart in all of this. And for lack of a better person, I decided to insert sort of the wacky professor from Futurama. It seemed fitting to some extent. And our conversation goes as follows. Hey, what are you doing? An important experiment. Please stand clear. The black box does exist. The dreaded black box. What's in the black box, I say? And the answer is, it's complicated and very important. Not very informative, obviously. Wait a minute, are you planning on leaving that black box in the altar, I say? Yeah, it's the only place I can complete my experiment. It won't work nearly as well elsewhere. I get real, you can't just leave that on the church altar. It turns out I can. I have all the paperwork needed signed off by the Pope. Complete end around on me. You don't go beyond the Pope in the Catholic Church, in case you're wondering. That's as high as you get. Sorry, I can't let you do that. Even the Pope says it's okay. Would it help if I told you what I'm working on? Outreach. Isn't public outreach? Great. A hint. I'm skeptical and said maybe. I want to see what's on the inside of that box before I go one way or another with this. He says he's working on a theory of everything. My response, what do you mean by that? He comes back with an explanation for the existence of everything in the universe. You, me, the sun, moon, the whole enchilada. Where did it all come from? The ultimate reality. The ultimate reality. Well, it could be pretty powerful. It might even change how people think about all sorts of stuff. Yeah, but we're making good progress, but we need more data. How many times have I heard that over the years from scientists? The recent results about the Higgs Boson were an important piece of that theory. This is where he takes me aside. He gives me a little lesson that I want to share with you because it actually pertains to a key message I want to transmit tonight. In the history of our sort of evolving understanding of the building blocks of the universe, it started out with the atom, and there were only, in fact, 4 different types: earth, wind, air, and fire. And by mixing different ratios of that, you got different things, from trees to grass to ground to air, etc. Of course, we know that that's been ruled out. That's about 2,000 years or so ago. But the fact that they got the atomic concept in place so many millennia ago is still impressive to me. And since then, we've moved on, of course, with more modern theories. This, by the way, is a horrible animation. Electrons don't go around in little circles, but it's all I could find at the internet, so just bear with me. And that, of course, leads to the buildup of the periodic table of the elements. Throw in the dark matter that we've discovered thanks to astronomy, and that is our sort of modern understanding of the nature of the building blocks of the universe. Or is it? I propose that it, in fact, is not. And through research done most recently, we're building up a more advanced theory and a way of looking at everything called quantum field theory. It's an intimidating sort of mouthful, but don't worry. It's actually, in its least complex form, a beautiful theory that I want to share with you tonight. To do that, I need to explain what are fields. And I bet you everybody in here who's been in school remembers what happens when you have a plus and a minus. They attract each other, and they have these things called field lines, which are just lines of equal energy between these two charges here. You can see this in a magnet as well. I bet you everybody as a kid has played with a magnet. These iron filings, they trace out field lines, in this case, magnetic field lines instead of electric field lines. Remove the charge, or the magnetic particles, and those field lines go away. Same thing happens if a planet's there and you have gravitational fields. But something really interesting happened recently. A few years ago, a unique field was confirmed at the world's most powerful particle accelerator. The field was created during the Big Bang, requires no source, has energy, can never, ever be switched off, and fills all space and the universe. This is a very special field. Turns out we discovered 2 incarnations of this field. They may be the same thing, they may be different. That's kind of a detail. The fact that we've discovered them is absolutely remarkable. So imagine these boxes representing pieces of space, and you've cleared out everything you possibly can to create a vacuum in those spaces. To the astronomer and to the physicist, they still have stuff in them. They still have energy. It turns out you cannot create a region of space that doesn't have energy. To the astronomer, we call that dark energy. To the physicist, vacuum energy, or maybe the Higgs field. Those are one and the same thing these days. The astronomers in the world have measured this, again, through research at Mauna Kea. Don't worry about the units. It's a small number, 10 to the minus 9th. The physicists aren't in quite the same agreement with this. 10 to the 114, that's a lot of energy in every cubic centimeter in this room. I know I'm an astronomer. I'm going to this number, but I can't explain how this one is wrong either when you understand how it's derived. So when you look at that ratio, it's an impressive discrepancy between the numbers that have been measured, but what's impressive is the fact that we have in fact discovered this type of incredible field that pervades all of space. How it's done in the physics community, basically by smashing particles together. 2 protons coming together at very high speeds, approaching the speed of light. They ram into each other, form all kinds of debris, and every now and then you get something called this magical Higgs Boson. I'm sure many of you have heard that over time. Turns out the Higgs Boson is kind of the boring part. What actually happens is that it proves that something called the Higgs field exists, and this field pervades throughout the entire universe. And what happens every time one of these particles is generated is that space itself rings. I want you to stop and think about that. Space itself rings every time you make one of these particles. It's a shocking result. It's a radical concept. How does space just shake? And yet it happens every time we generate one of these events in a particle accelerator. So back to our little skit. Cool, so it looks like everything in the universe may just be vibrating energy fields that fill all space. It's starting to look that way. Forget tiny little balls swirling around to make atoms. We're all just cast from energy fields. What we perceive as matter or energy are just vibrations in those fields. This is a very different way of looking at the universe. I've thrown out the periodic table. More study is needed to really pin it all down to get to the holy grail of physics, the theory of everything. Okay, so here's the deal. You can leave that box, but you have to share everything you learn with everyone. When I thought this through, this is essential. You cannot work behind closed doors. You have to share what you discover. Explain why it's needed to be here and doesn't work well anywhere else. Okay, a little skepticism out of our professor. And finally, make me a part of this so I feel ownership in the quest too. And at last we have a deal. If we're only that simple though. When you're having a conversation with yourself, you can basically convince yourself of anything. So why is this important? Remember that picture from the slide set I showed you before? This is my daughter Kirsty, snowboarding, boogie boarding I should say, down Mauna Kea. And only in Hawaii will you get a picture like that. You may perceive of her as a collection of molecules. A better representation is that she is pure energy. And I mean that literally. It's a very different way of looking at the universe. She's part of a quantum field, a field that spans all space and all time. Beyond that, if you think about it, the rings of Saturn, ice crystals, the core of the sun, intensely hot, fusion reactions going on, or even, dare I say, space itself, the coldest region of space you can imagine. They are all made of the same stuff, this underlying energy. A completely different way of looking at everything. the ultimate equalizer. And they are all bound by this quantum field, this Higgs field, that spans all of space. It's a remarkable way of looking at the universe. And so when I see conflict around me, here we see Billy. I'm not sure where Billy is tonight. I'll let you use your imagination to fill that in. No offense, Billy. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyway, here's Billy in Lanakila negotiating up at the TMT groundbreaking. TMT supporters, I guess union workers at one of the events. And I have to look at this in a different light, knowing what I do about the way the universe is. They are, in fact, not just people. They are, in fact, items of pure energy. And they are oscillating in space, and they have a completely different meaning or context when I look at them in that manner. In fact, I dare say that in a world often dominated by confrontation, we are easily blinded by our eyes, by our senses, unable to see they were literally cast from the same fabric of energy. That's what you all really are. This is science. It's powerful stuff. And in fact, from nature's perspective, I seriously wonder if we aren't actually one being. We're all sharing this common energy that spans the entire universe. This is what I mean by paradigm shift. It's our modern day version of what Galileo did. It's a completely different way of looking at each other. And in that new lens on life and our being, it's a way of potentially opening up new opportunities as a species. So back to our science versus religion and Dr. Feynman's quote, how can we draw inspiration to support these two pillars of civilization so they may stand together in full vigor, mutually unafraid? Here you see them, science and religion. Well, for me, they do not stand opposite at all. They are in complete harmony. I am a practicing Catholic scientist, and I know when one starts and the other stops. And I draw value from them both. But more importantly, the reason I pursue them both is because they both provide for me, and I think for millions, meaning, context, and understanding. Forget the details. Science and religion are different ways of approaching the same thing. If I do it through a telescope or through prayer or through chant, it's all about finding out who I am. That's why I do what I do. It's not just looking up in the sky, it's looking inside myself. So, back to where we started, where Earth meets sky. When I first showed you this slide, you probably thought I was being figurative. In reality, I was being literal. It is connected. I was quietly counting how many times you use the word connect in your presentation. It is integral to the Hawaiian culture. And the good news that I have to offer is that we are connected in ways that we never imagined, in ways that connect everything to everything across the universe through this incredible field of energy. So I ask, given what I've just laid out for you, why is there a schism that led us to be here tonight? Why do we have such a drastically different perspective about Mauna Kea's future? On one side, and I hesitate to use the word side because I don't think I'm on either side. I genuinely feel like I'm on both sides. I guess that's why I'm so frustrated. On one side, a beautiful culture. I've raised my kids in this culture, and I'm proud of that, and it will deepen their life having been raised in Hawaii. Through beautiful dance, through the voyages, courageous, heroic voyages that led to people being here for the first time. On the other side, you have the true language of the universe, the only language of the universe, mathematics, quantum field theory, big telescopes, all the things that are associated with science. And I had a little revelation in thinking about all this when I was trying to piece it all together. Why are we having this schism? In one sense, we have a community that cherishes the connected nature of everything. And you made the case. Pua made the case in her article as well. It truly is integral to this culture. On the other hand, we have science that discovered the connected nature of everything in the universe. And when this clicked in my head, I couldn't help but asking, why are we fighting? Why aren't we celebrating? Why can't we have this shared passion through science and religion, through telescopes and a sacred site? Because it turns out there are two different ways of getting to the same answer at the end of the day. My vision for this whole event is, as I said before, to lead on to other communications, other community meetings, and to try and find ways to bring these visions together. So I'll close by sharing with you what we should do as Doug the astronomer now in terms of developing the future of Mauna Kea. For me, as I said before, it's more than just adding an extra level of precision onto measuring the position of a star or something like that. It's deeply personal. The reason that we do this sacred science at this sacred site is ultimately about giving society in general meaning, context, and understanding. Mauna Kea and astronomy, they are two pillars side by side in my mind and in my heart, and they're literally challenging our concept of existence. That's how deep the research is. It's profound, and this is what I meant by chicken skin science. When you start to ask yourself, what are we really made of, and how do we connect to each other in this universe? I want to know. That's what drives me as a scientist. I personally believe that this is a gift for all of humanity, and it's a gift for the ages. And I want us as a community to give that gift forward to an unborn generation, to make it possible for them to look back at our generation and be thankful that we came together and figured out how these can coexist together. A summit that is sacred by its nature and also powerful by its nature as a means of probing the universe. You may have noticed that I haven't said much about TMT. That isn't because I don't favor TMT. It's because to understand it, you have to understand the context in which it is being proposed. And for me, this is the context. It's not just a big machine. It's an exploration of self, this combination of TMT and the other observatories. And the reality is, the deeper we probe the universe, the deeper we probe inside. Between mathematics, physics, and astronomy, this is what it's all about. And I believe that this century is when we will rewrite our concept of existence through this type of research. It's big. It is really big. So we covered a lot of ground tonight. Started out by covering the know and the don't know zone and the frontier of research. We talked about laser adaptive optics and first observations of a huge black hole, the forests below us from the summit of Mauna Kea, the Wamani forests, which are so alive and beautiful to be amongst as a hiker and a member of this community. Talked about big telescopes, a brilliant man, Richard Feynman, one of my heroes, and how the eevee birds have come back by just bringing back the trees that they love to live in and feed upon. I described for you how and why Mauna Kea is special for astronomy and why it is truly unique worldwide. It's a gift. It truly is a gift for science. I explained to you why my daughter and everything in this room is actually pure energy. It's a very different way of looking at it. And how the quantum field that we exist within is a beautiful and elegant way of looking at the universe. And finally, I share with you tonight the fact that this is an absolutely sacred place. It really, really is, and we must treat it as such. And we have to, as a community, find a way to coexist, to energize every aspect of it, be it science or religion. So with that, I thank everybody for your attention tonight, and my request of everybody is from here, let's work together as a community to find an inclusive, I repeat, inclusive vision for the summit of Mauna Kea. Thank you very much.
Please again another round of applause for Hawane Rios, Ruth Aloua, and Doug Simmons. Before we go ahead and take our 15-minute break and collect our index cards, I want to go ahead and leave us all with a few bits of information or knowledge or knowing that we've gained this evening. Please repeat after me. Exploration. Exploration of self. No, we can do better than that. Exploration of self. Connection. Energy. Context. Understanding. Meaning. Information. Knowledge. Understanding. Sacredness. My bowl. To your bowl. My na'o. To your na'o. My water. To your water. My heart. To your heart. My relations. To your relations. But if they want to know to defend, if they want to defend their own position, they need to know a bit about yours. No, you don't have to repeat it. I just want you to think about that. But if they want to defend their own position, they need to know a bit about yours. And this evening, these beautiful, beautiful speakers have done just that. They've provided us with information potentially that you've not known before, that we have not known before. Potentially you have. Potentially it's amplified what you know. Potentially it's been added to your bowl, to your light. And so in that, I offer again a huge mahalo to both Hawane and to Doug for coming, for being brave, for getting all the jitters, for saying yes, I'll do it. That's a big deal. Yeah, big deal. Mahalo nui. So as you stand up and stretch, as you have your conversations, we keep them in the light of which we enter this room tonight. We keep them in the light of coming together, of being able to ho'olono, of being able to listen with our heart, our mind, alo'i alo, and our spirit, so that the questions that we craft are not judgmental, but they're questions of imi ike na awau, of truth. In Hawaiian context, that means science. It means ciencia. It means truth. So as you stand up and stretch, I'm going to offer this to you, this mana'o of Hale. He says, truth is the highest goal, and aloha is the greatest truth. Enjoy your 15 minutes. Okay, so we've come to the bewitching hour. The time when I get to turn the mic over to Dr. Kinney. Yay! Mahalo again to Feynman and to Rohana for allowing us to be in their home, to be able to sit here and to listen and to ingest and to be nourished by all of this mana'o that was shared today, this evening. And so I do want to go ahead and hand over the mic to Dr. Kinney, and he will take us to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
First, of course, we are so honored to have presentations as moving and insightful and deep as we have heard this evening. So, I just have to come closer, I guess. Thank you. We've had such moving and insightful informative presentations this evening. I'm sure we all feel that we've been experiencing something truly excellent. I want to continue by presenting questions to the panelists, and the questions will be directed to one or another, and possibly all of the panelists. I believe that Phaeton will be will be putting those questions on the screen as I ask them. So we'll attempt to use that format. Okay, do you want to ask the questions? Yes, okay. In that case, I'll have Phaeton, my daughter, proceed on with asking questions. You know, I want to mention one thing, and it comes from my heart. I have had the great, and I believe it to be a privilege, of taking classes over this past year from Lanakila. And those classes have been one of the most moving things that I can remember in my long set of experiences. We've had, our classes usually are, the first hour we do practice hula and chanting, and in the second hour it's more a discussion of things that are so relevant to our environment and our culture in Hawaii. We've had field trips to some of the most wonderful places, and have, I believe, gotten to experience some of the reverence that is reflected in the efforts that Lanakila is undertaking at this time. I'm sure he would welcome any and all of you to participate in the next set of classes that he holds, and I think it would be a great opportunity for all of you. Let me pass the microphone to my daughter.
All right. Aloha again, everyone. Okay, now we have the Q&A session. Answers are about 5 minutes long. We're gonna just kind of go along, starting with questions. We're gonna start maybe with the questions for all. We'll do maybe one for all, one for a particular person, and then back to all again. Might seems reasonable. We're winging it here, if you guys didn't notice. Okay, so one of the first and kind of most reoccurring questions is, for all of you, do you believe a middle ground can be reached, and what is your vision for Hawaii 10 years and 50 years from now? Does that future include observatories?
We're going to have to invent some sort of rotation for the microphone, I guess. In fact, I partially, spaced out and forgot the question. I think it's, what do we envision sort of 10 or 50 years downstream for the future of telescopes on the summit?
Do you believe a middle ground can be reached, and what is your vision 10 years, 50 years, and does it include observatories?
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think a middle ground could be reached. I wouldn't have asked our community to come together and put the effort that you saw in that presentation, which is non-trivial, if I didn't believe that it couldn't result in an outcome that we all feel not just part of, but are proud of. And even if I don't know what that outcome is, and I honestly don't at this point, I don't know how to get there without these sorts of events and conversations. I had a lot of good side chats off to the side. Some liked my presentation, some didn't. That's what I expected. and I'm not being critical of anybody. I really do. If I give this presentation again, I want to understand where people might have had a problem with it, and then I can try and address that in anticipation of ever doing it again. So in 10 years' time, given the sheer amount of momentum behind the observatories now, I find it very surprising if there still isn't a large number of telescopes on the summit of Mauna Kea. Pick your number. I simply say that because the financial state, the technology, the fact that we're clearly number one in the world, there's a lot of momentum there to be erased over 10 years' time. In 50 years' time, it's more difficult to predict. I guess my response in general is that I genuinely view the summit of Mauna Kea as sacred. I don't know how else more directly I can convey that. I also view it as a truly unique portal on the universe. And those are both important. And as long as those telescopes are doing that world-class research and offering humanity this radically different perspective of ourselves, and teaching through their observations things about ourselves, I think the telescopes are actually doing a service. If they don't retain that status, if they turn into facilities that are being diminished in terms of capability by, say, facilities in Chile or somewhere in the world, I feel differently. But given the demonstrated scientific promise of these telescopes, my philosophy is that as long as they're doing that, we need to find a common ground. And if they're not doing that, I think we have a very sort of weak case to keep those telescopes on the summit. It's a good thing. I think it's good that there's a limitation on the number of telescopes, because that drives nothing but the best. We're not filling those slots with anything but world-class facilities that way. So it may seem a little counterintuitive, but when I see that as a challenge, the limits on the telescopes, as a challenge to be the absolute best, which in a sense I think is honoring the best site in the world at the same time.
Can you, this is going to sound ridiculous, can you actually read that really long question one more time?
Yeah, do you believe a middle ground can be reached? And what is your vision for Hawaii 10 years and 50 years from now? Does that future include observatories?
Okay. Before I talk, I just want everybody to know that when I speak just for myself. Even though I'm a member of the Hui that's actually on the mountain, I do not speak for anyone there. I do not even speak for my family. I just speak for me and who I am sitting here in this chair. But after hearing that question, one thing that I hear in the 5, the 10, the 20, the 50-year plan is future. And that's what we're talking about right now, is the future of ourselves and the future of our keiki. And that is the reason that I am sitting in this chair. Will we have telescopes or observatories of any type on top of the mountain? When I'm asked that question, I'm actually asked tons of other questions, and the question that comes to me is, what are we sacrificing in the process of trying to progress? So I'm not an expert on anything that's happening on the mountain, or actually anything in general. I'm actually still a youth that's just learning. So thank you for being here and for being patient. But what I do know is that there are hazardous materials that are being stored on the mountain, and we can talk about how they're being cared for, zero waste facilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what it comes down to is that water under the mountain. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years. In 1 year, maybe we won't even be asking if we need observatories. Maybe we'll be asking where will we get our water from? Where will our people go if something happens to our water? And water is a sensitive issue, and it is something that's not fully understood. I don't even fully understand it with the mountain, but I do know that it exists, and that its existence is enough for me to say no. That I don't know if the observatories can exist up there if it comes at the sacrifice or of the not knowing of what it's going to do to the water for my children. Where will they go to get water? Where will I go? Where will you go? I mean, this is a real question. It is, because that's the one thing that we all need. We don't need to have love for that mountain. We don't even need to go to that mountain. But as human beings, one thing that we do need is water. If we were going to reach a middle ground, I would ask, how did we get to where we are today? We talk about communities, we talk about collaboration, but who were those communities that were consulted in the process of creating the management plans for our mountain? There were many people that were there, but I guess for me, it's how do we get more people involved? How did we get to where we are today, and how can we make sure that that doesn't happen again? For myself, when I look at the mountain, it is not just this beautiful, majestic mountain that stands above us, that we adore for whatever reason it may be. She is literally our mother. So in that perspective, it's a very human relationship with the Mauna. So for myself, do I see the TMT going through? No. Because for me, that is damaging, that is hurting. You're killing my mom in the process of trying to understand the universe. And so for me personally, I don't see that. But for me as an individual, a part of this greater humanity, I want to talk about it and I want to understand if we can. And if we can, what does that look like? But for me personally, again, no. On my mountain, on my feature for Mauna Kea, I do not see observatories on there. And it starts at the TMT and I say no.
This one is for Doug. Perhaps it's not about science and culture versus religion. Perhaps it's about astronomy and outer space versus environmental science and ecology and the Earth. Please respond.
I actually don't see the potential conflict between astronomy and environmental sort of resources. I see them as distinct. I see the environment in particular as one that I deeply cherish. I don't know how, having spent so many hours, a lot of them on my own, sort of in private with that mountain, I could genuinely see a future for Mauna Kea that I felt was threatening to the environment in some profound way. So I hear the concerns. We just heard them in the previous question and answer. And I understand the importance of the source of water on our big island. And I'm having a hard time reconciling that, which I think is a very legitimate concern, with what I understand to be the hydrology and the literal physical impact on this gigantic shield volcano, which I remind you is the second largest volcano in the solar system, I believe. This is a gigantic structure. So from a physical standpoint, I have a hard time reconciling the impact of these, comparatively speaking, microscopic structures. From a spiritual standpoint, I understand that they are a real issue. And for me, I'm trying to wrestle with those two to understand them both. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. Honestly, I'm not. But I do not see them in a black or white context. What I try to do is search for a way that they can coexist. And it may not be possible for some people. I fully acknowledge and understand and can accept that. We're all different. We're all going to come to our own conclusions. But from my perspective, the environment is being effectively protected. I want to protect it for my kids as much as you heard from our previous speaker. And I'm not aware of the actual physical impact that is suggested on the effects of hydrology within this mountain by these telescopes.
This question is for the Mauna Kea protectors. If the other telescopes are removed, would that change your opinion of the TMT?
No. The other telescopes all put together create the footprint of the TMT on the northern plateau of Mauna Kea. So for me, the kuleana is to decommission those telescopes and let the land heal itself. And for me, when I hear that and think about compromise, that's not a compromise. The heads of those pu'u were cut off and buildings were put on top of them. And this was happening very quietly in a time where our nation was in a turmoil and trying to heal. And so now we're coming into a space where we're really seeing that during that time, that 2 generations or 3 generations transition, we were in a really harsh space as a people. And now we're coming into a space of healing. And coming into that space, I believe, is about looking at what has been done and how that has affected us, all of us, not just as a Hawaiian people, but all of us. Affected our land, affected our oceans, our grandparents, parents, and how it will affect our children. When I looked at this, when I watched your presentation, Doug, I saw my parents on this presentation, Kalani Flores and Pua Case, who are dedicated and doing everything that we possibly can for the future, for the present and for the future. And so when I saw that that statement was there, that my mother's statement was grounded in the past, I felt like that didn't resonate with me. Because to protect the land and to look at what needs to be healed and to look at the sacredness and to look at how our own people revered the elements, that was a religion. That is the religion. Looking at the elements and the land. And it is very connected by this word called science. That is not grounded in the past. That is grounded in the present, rooted in the past, so that we can walk forward in a better way for the future. That's how I see that. And so when I see and hear these questions about, well, what if we take them all down? Not one has been taken down yet. So I don't see how I could even believe that. And that's why we're having this conversation, and that's why it's still beautiful. But because these things haven't been done yet, I don't see how I could even fathom that happening. And then the TNT going up. It doesn't exist in my reality. Mahalo.
I'm just gonna try and build on what Hawane said, and hopefully I don't damage it too much because she always talks so great. But one thing we're talking about when we're talking about removing telescopes in order to put a new one in, that negotiation process is, we keep coming back to science, and I just have to address this. Nahaku, who is in the audience here today, we were at the UH Board of Regents meeting, and she stood up and she said, "Look at this face. I am science." So this treatment, this idea that science, we need to have the telescopes to achieve that scientific endeavor is false. I challenge all of you, look in the mirror. You are science. We are science. Our ancestors were science. The three-stooled pedestal that we talked about earlier, religion, science, and environment. For our people, Kanako'ili, that is actually one entire being, and that is the essence of my life, of who I am. The environment is not separate from me. It is my elder, it is my ancestor. It is who I honor, it is why I'm here today. Science is how I came to be. The navigations, the voyages that led my ancestors here, along with many others, without Western inventions. And the religion, the trust that Keokua would provide for us and give us the knowledge that we need in order to accomplish the task ahead. So do we need those telescopes? Do I need them? I don't need them. My ancestors did science. They did religion. They were environment.
This one would then be addressed to all of you. Can either side share their ideas as to an alternate solution that might satisfy everyone?
You just get better every time. First of all, in my presentation, I made reference to Pua, and if I offended you, I genuinely apologize. And I thank you for giving me a different perspective, because if I ever give that presentation again, now I know not to do that. And this is part of the learning process. And your sort of counter perspective to my three-legged stool, that is very helpful for me to hear too. So I encourage you to lay it on, because I really am trying to figure this one out, and I'm not going to get it right every time. So anyway, with that, I'm sorry, I forgot the question. I've been up since midnight.
Can either side share their idea as to an alternate solution that might satisfy everyone?
Wow. I mean, we basically have heard that, you know, a summit free of telescopes is a deeply valued perspective from my friends and colleagues here at the table, and I tend to view it as one in which the telescopes should be there as long as they're doing great science on behalf of humanity. Deep down, I think there's a common ground. Whether it involves fewer telescopes, I don't know. Keep in mind that I'm on thin ice when I start calling out which telescope should go. I thought the Hawaiians were going to kill me tonight, but the other directors are a lot more intimidating if I start naming names. All I can say is I'm open to ideas. I genuinely am open to ideas. I wish I had one in front of me now that I could put on the table that could bridge the gap that you hear between us. And, you know, if there are ideas out in the audience, you know, send them our way. I don't have the solution. All I have is a willingness to find it. I don't know how else to answer your question.
I would just like to acknowledge what you said, and mahalo nui for acknowledging me. And I'm very moved by that. And I see that, you know, even if we have differing opinions or perspectives or upbringings, that we can do this with respect and with kindness. And that is what I would like to lift up right now, is that, you know, we're having discussions in a different way. And I can genuinely say that I respect your views, and I respect you. And that, I feel, is a huge step forward in this change. And I too have forgotten what the question is.
I haven't done the PowerPoint, very sorry. Can either side share their ideas as an alternate solution? So
well, I think this is the beginning of that. And I think that in the past we have made very many compromises on our own homeland, and our voices have not been heard. And this is the biggest movement we have seen in a really long time. And so many voices are coming up. And so many people are starting to have this conversation and talk about this. And so the beauty I see is that this is even happening. Because in the past, just what I have read and what I have witnessed, is that maybe we weren't heard so much. And quite possibly our culture wasn't taken into account as much. And now I'm seeing a people rise because they saw that, witnessed that, feel the pain of that, and are now saying, we descend from this land. This is where we come from. Our ancestors came from here. The ancestors before that traveled here. And so with that comes kuleana, responsibility, like I said before. And so a responsibility is to also have these conversations. A responsibility is to be open and to connect and to open to understand. That is a part of this responsibility. And it's a part of carrying out the teachings of our ancestors, which is to come with love and to come with aloha. And let that aloha lead these conversations and lead the understanding. And so I believe that this is just the beginning of it. This is just the start. And I don't know how it's gonna turn out. But what I do know is that just by being in this room, we are already creating change.
Okay, this is gonna look bad, but I actually don't remember the question. And everything they're saying is just so great.
Pretty impressive stuff. Please, can either side share their ideas as to an alternate solution to satisfy everyone?
Yeah, you know, I really don't know, but I'm in agreement with the two to my right that it starts here, it starts now, and we are the change that we want to see. And I do have to mahalo Doug because it takes a lot of courage to open, to want to see this type of dialogue happen. There are tons of people who work in government who do not. One thing that I admire about Doug is there's actually two things. There's a ton, but I only have 5 minutes. But I think one of the bravest things is that he is brave and he has released fear and he has come open, and that's the second thing. So he is not bound by fear of what will happen when these conversations take place, and he is open to hearing and receiving what we have to say. And I do respect what he said because I learned a lot about, through his presentation, how we are viewing this issue and our future differently. And that came through this, and I wouldn't have gotten that unless he had encouraged to have this type of conversation with Lanakila. In the process of moving forward, I'm actually gonna borrow his analogy of what that looks like and how can we actually have a future or a vision that we can actually embrace as human beings. And one of them is to really look at the way that we talk and the way that we communicate and how we're looking at what the products will be of having the telescopes up there. So for one thing is, I personally don't feel like the telescopes benefit me. So when I hear benefit humanity, out of respect to you, I don't feel like I'm benefiting. And I actually don't think that I ever have, just on a personal, individual point of view. But in moving forward, I think that we do need that three-footed stool. And in my stool, what I see is healing for ourselves, for the traumas, the emotional wounds that we carry with us from our ancestors, healing for the mountain so that she can care for itself and regenerate in a way that she needs to. I see prayer. That's one thing that lacks in government processes, is do we give time for Native peoples especially to practice their culture and to pray and to wait for the answers to come from the ancestors. Can the government give us that as Native peoples? The right, do they acknowledge our prayers and will they recognize them in the government, or will they just listen to us and pass us by? And the third is time. I don't even know what's gonna happen. I just know where I am right here, right now. But those are three things that I think can definitely help us find a path to the future, is healing, prayer, and time. I don't know what the outcome will be.
Next question then for Doug. How many Native Hawaiians are employed at the Mauna Kea Observatories, and how many work as scientists or astronomers?
Not enough. Start there. So I can speak for CFHT, and for those of you that know me, I'm a huge advocate of workforce development and training our keiki to at some point, pilot these incredible machines. At CFHT, I believe we're about 60% local hire, and by that I mean local. I mean who is actually a resident of the state of Hawaii when they were employed by CFHT. And I would guess about a half a dozen of Native Hawaiian ancestry across the staff. In terms of actual astronomers, I'm only aware of one or two in the state, which is woefully incomplete from my perspective. I think there's a lot of ground to make up there. It makes so much sense for these observatories to have a sense of ownership across the community, and a great way to do that is for the community to own them through their jobs, to get to understand them and the people who work with them in a very personal way. CFHT, we're pretty tight-knit Ohana, and we take a lot of pride in that. And I would love to see the day where we were 100% local hire. I had the pleasure last Sunday to give a presentation to a number of community leaders, business leaders, and Senator Lorraine Inouye. And there's a slide that I ended my presentation with, and it was I showed the faces of 8 people at CFHT we've hired in the past year, all local hires. And we're only about 40 or 45 people. So I have turned the knob so hard over in terms of local hires that it's a message I want to get out there. I want the other directors to step up too. It's important that kids know that when they go through college, they have an opportunity to work in a high-tech field if that's what they want to do. It's not enough just to rely or blame it on the education system or something else. So I take great pride. In fact, 3 of those are straight out of UH. 2 from UH Hilo, 1 from UH Manoa. So I deeply want to see this grow in the future. I take great pride in every Native Hawaiian that we take on board into our Ohana at CFHT. And my immediate reaction to your question is it's not enough. And I'm doing, I think, about everything I can to bring up to the level of 100% if I can, local hire, and as many Native Hawaiians as want to work at these observatories, I think should be provided that opportunity.
This one is for the Mauna Kea protectors. Why is the summit sacred to your cause as compared to the whole mountain?
The whole mountain is sacred. The entire mountain. There's no separation. The entire mountain is the body of Wakea and Papa Valinu, the product of that union. And so the summit hello. The summit in particular is the closest to the sky while on Papa. It is like the po'o. It is the intelligence. It is a portal. And it is difficult for me to put into words and to express to you why the summit is sacred. Because I know it is sacred. I was born knowing that it is sacred. And so the summit is the realm of the akua. It is the Vau Akua, the place of the gods and goddesses, the place of the purest water forms. Pure, that is a word that is always associated with Poli'ahu. And Poli'ahu is a water form that is revered so much that she is a goddess, revered so much that she is placed in the heights. And that is water. The summit is ancient and carries ancient water. The whole mountain carries ancient water. And so I can't, again, express to you just in words why the summit is sacred. But I am doing my best with what I'm given. The realm of the gods. The mountain is a temple in itself. It is a natural temple. It connects all things. There's a part of the song that I wrote, and it says, Poli'ahu ikahau kia lihauika huanu lilinoi ke hau ohu moinanea ike akawaia And that is what the water sounds like to me. And that is how I pay respect to the water forms there. That is how I know and can express to you why the summit is sacred.
Okay, we're actually starting to close the question and answer session, and this is our question we have for Doug. I just want to announce that we will have some way to try and answer all of these questions if we can. There's a lot of really great questions here. I am just so impressed by our community's concerns and their thoughtfulness in composing these. It's really pretty impressive. The question here I have, do you believe that the pursuit of knowledge, while laudable, must be restrained by either boundaries? And does the inherently insatiable nature of the pursuit of that necessitate that there be no end to the construction of exponentially larger facilities?
Short answer is yes. As I said before, these boundaries actually not only propel a sense of balance to some extent at least, but they actually force excellence into what is allowed. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm not here to articulate a vision that paves the summit of this sacred temple with concrete and glass and steel. I don't know what the right balance necessarily is, but if you did not have those restrictions, I see the situation not necessarily being good for anybody at the end of the day. So, I see balance as crucial. I see it as something we have to integrate into whatever future plan there is, and I actually see it as beneficial.
And we're just going to end with not a question, but a comment. We have someone here who wanted to say that we are blessed to have this Mauna so we can explore. Let us build with respect. Let us be mindful of her place and our place. Let us explore.
Those are great words to finish with. I also want to finish with a closing comment. I'm sitting next to two incredibly intelligent, articulate, passionate, beautiful wahine, and I feel incredibly indebted to your contribution tonight. I thank you for that. I think that together we've taken a good step, and my door is open. I would really love it if you would come and share what you know with my staff, and have a talk story session. I don't know how to do this without this sort of interaction. We'll provide the food, don't worry. Food's on us, but you provide the story. And I would love to continue this conversation with my staff, with you too. So thank you very, very much. I deeply appreciate it.
I would just like to say, just like how we began, from my bowl to your bowl, from my water to your water, from my heart to your heart. Mahalo. Boundless gratitude for this time and space that we've gotten to share. Mahalo to you, Doug, for your openness and your willingness to listen and to exchange. Mahalo to all of you here for being present and for your questions. I hope that we can answer more of them at a later time. But I honor the presence here and just want to lift up the name Mauna Kea into this room. Mauna Kea, infinite energy, infinite vibration, infinite sacredness. With deep thanks, appreciation, mahalo for your grace, your time, your thoughts, your intentions. Ikapiko ke aloha ka aina, yakako. Ke aloha ka mauna, yakako apoloa. Mahalo nui.
I just want to thank you, Doug. And I was sitting here, and before we close, I just want to say Doug is a warrior in his own right. He has courage, he has bravery, he's released his fears, and he is here and he's open. So much mahalo to you for being here, and to Hawane for sharing in ways that I can't, and I hope to be able to one day. And mahalo to the community for coming out. I was on the mountain since the first day of having us there physically. And I can say that there are miracles happening there every single day, and a miracle happened here tonight with all of us coming together, and I believe more will come in the future. So come and join us just to talk story, just to feel the love, because that is what the greater being of what is happening on that mountain. The mountain is calling us all there. So to come, to exchange food, to exchange stories, and to learn together and to have more opportunities like this, we can create them. And we are the change. Mahalo.
I would just like to add one more thing. Mahalo for your invitation. And we would like to invite you to the We Are Mauna Kea concert next week. Over here, starts at 4. Bring your people.
Sunday.
Super Sunday. It's on Sunday. It's tomorrow. Hawaii. It's been a long evening. Sunday. It starts at 4. Oh, and we'll bring the food.
Again, we'd like to say mahalo nui to Mary Beth, to Kanoa, and to Feynman. Please give them a round of applause. To Honey, who's running with us, to Honey, she did a lot of the logistics and the coordination. To Dr. Kinney, sorry, I can't call you Tom, Dr. Kinney. And thank you for opening up your home to the Kanara Franco Hana, to every one of you who has brought with you a spirit of openness, a spirit of unity, and a spirit of oneness that filled up this house tonight. Thank all of you very, very much. All of you, mahalo. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.